Hello, I'm Rich Nardine. Today we have a very special guest in our studio. For many of you, he really needs no introduction. For the rest of you, he's Jon Pertwee, the third actor to regenerate as the famous Doctor Who, appearing in that long-running science fantasy series from 1970 to 1974. Jon, welcome. What's your reaction to the huge popularity of Doctor Who around the world and in America?
Great delight, particularly here, because up till the time my Doctor Who's were shown in the United States, nobody knew me at all over here. And now they do, because they now look at everything that I've ever done. In fact, they tell me about things they've seen that I didn't know that I'd made. I'd completely forgotten. I made them 25 years ago. But they write and tell me, they say, we saw you in such and such a film, and I thought I'd forgotten I'd even made that picture.
Why do you think the series is so popular?
You tell me. I have no idea.
Really?
I presume it's because it's escapism, and why was Star Trek so incredibly popular? It must be the same reason. Sci-fi, there are that many sci-fi fans, and remember that your fans here of Doctor Who are vastly different from our own.
In what way?
Well, they're much more adult.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, much older. The average age of the fan in America is 15 years older than the average fan in England. And they take it much more seriously. Their fan letters are much more intelligent, much more erudite. Our fan letters are awful, most of them. But 65% of all American fan letters are interesting, and they have interesting things to say and things they want to know.
Former script editor Terrence Dix feels that your years of the series were the classic years of Doctor Who when the series came into its own as a long-term cult favorite. Do you agree with this? Before that, he felt that it was more of a modest children's show, and during your period,
Yeah, Terrence has always been, I'm glad to say, a great advocate of mine and my era. Yes, I think he liked it because I perhaps made it grow up a little. Because I'm that much older, and I was the oldest of all the Doctor Who's. I suppose William Hartnell would have been older than me when he started. But yes, I made it grow up a bit, and I also, with this thing we discussed previously about the threat coming to Earth rather than us going to the threat in other planets. If I'd had my way, I would have stayed on the planet Earth in Doctor Who. I wouldn't have gone off into other planets, because I've always said that there's nothing more alarming than coming home and finding a Yeti sitting on your loo in Tooting Bec, which is a sort of area of London, because that would be a surprise, whereas if you were in the Himalayas, that would be the natural place to find a Yeti on your John. And if you adapt that simile, I think that works. When we had Daleks sort of roaring over Westminster Bridge, that was much more alarming to me than finding them roaring about on planets of their own. So during that period, I liked the team that we had then of the Brigadier and John Levine, the Sergeant, and Katie Manning, and Joe Grant, and that was my favourite period in Doctor Who.
Getting away from the Doctor for a minute, just into your own background. You come from a theatrical family. Your father was a playwright, your aunt was an actress, and you had a grandmother who was an opera singer, among other members. Did you come to performing simply because of your family tradition, or were there other forces that drew you into performing?
No, I like to eat. And I found it was the best way of eating regularly was acting, because it's the one thing that I knew I could do. If I wasn't doing that, I'd be a policeman, I think.
Really? How did you know you could be an actor?
Because when I was aged about 3, I started acting. My father wrote plays for us when we were tiny, and we used to perform them in our house in London, and all of us, the whole family, would gather. And we would put on entertainments and plays that my father wrote, and he wrote things specially for us, and I felt that I was quite at ease with them, even as a small boy. I know I was exaggerating to say 3, although my first performance I gave when I was 3.5. Or 4.
On stage?
On a stage, oh yes. So I was tremendously successful. Riot, I was.
You were?
But my grandmother thought Laurence Olivier better pack up. Yes. I recited a most excellent poem. Would you like to have it?
Sure, we'd love it.
My first performance. This is the first time I've ever told it on American television.
You still remember it?
I think so, yes. It's very, very complicated, but I'll try. Round the corner, out of sight, luckily all of us armed to fight. Who goes there? Cried little Jack. And a small voice answered, whack, whack, whack. That's the first thing I ever did on stage. Marvellous.
Fantastic.
Yes, and I was very pleased about that.
Great, that encouraged
so I got my ego came back again.
Great. You once characterized yourself in your younger days as a rebel. What were you rebelling against?
Well, I was thrown out of RADA. I was thrown out of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art for being utterly inefficient and hopeless and had no future as an actor at all. And I was in a Greek play. And they wanted me to be a win. I'm this idiotic going around going, woo, what is for hours. I wanted to get on with the acting, and so I rebelled about being a win, said that I wouldn't do that. And I was a bit of a rebel at school, again, because I objected to idiotic things like sort of prefects and fagging and so on. Fagging, I rushed to state, does not mean what you mean. It means that in English public schools, you know, you have to do duties and clean people's shoes and make pieces of toast for idiots who seem to be incapable of making pieces of toast for themselves. And so it doesn't matter if you're studying music or you're studying the cello or something 2 miles away in a music room, some equally small acne-necked boy will come rushing up and saying, "Quick, quick, Carton, your fag master wants you." So you rush back and said, "Yes, yes, what is it?" He said, "Make me a piece of toast." And you said, "Make it yourself." You know, you're crippled or something. And for that you get roundly thrashed and probably expelled, which I was. Roundly thrashed and expelled.
So you thought there was a better way to get this?
Sure, yeah, I thought that was a waste of time, yes.
Is there still some of the rebel left in you?
Undoubtedly, yes.
In what way?
Well, exactly the same way. I think I rebel against stupidity. I'm intolerant of fools. I don't tolerate fools gladly. I don't expect them to tolerate me either, which they frequently don't.
You once equated being an actor with being a corn merchant, and stated that one of your uncles, who was the head of a poetry society, added some class to your family. From this, one could infer that you hold acting in less than a noble, or view it as less than a noble profession. Is this accurate? Or?
No, that's not accurate at all. I think it's a very noble profession. I don't belong to the noblest part of it. I decided many years ago that I enjoyed as good a life as possible. I'm an inveterate traveler. I'm a diver. My main hobby is diving, underwater diving, scuba diving. And I travel the world, and I've been to most islands in the world that are worth diving on. And I can't do this unless I have money. And in order to get money, I work in the commercial side of the business as opposed to the very serious side, like the Royal Shakespeare or the Chichester or anywhere else like that. I haven't been that interested in that. I've been more in the commercial theatre. Yeah. So I've worked a lot in musicals and things, in shows like...
Does one preclude the other if you take, your, as you refer to as your betters?
Yes, I mean, I couldn't step into the sort of genre of what goes on at the Old Witch or the New Shakespeare or the Royal Shakespeare or so on. That would be completely beyond me.
Does that take too much of a commitment, or why is it?
No, it's just that I haven't done it for so long. I think if I had committed myself to it years and years ago, but I've been in show business for 50 years, and I've done everything. I've ridden on the wall of death and on a motorcycle with a toothless lion in the back in order to make a buck. I've worked in the circus and been a bareback riding actress as a woman, and I've done anything. Worked in rep, I work in cabaret, I work in any form of show business, and so it would be difficult, having done all that, to suddenly go into traditional straight Shakespearean theatre and the classics.
Okay. Getting back to Doctor Who for a while now, what was your first reaction, or what were your fans' reaction when you took over from Patrick Troughton in 1970? Did they have any difficulty in accepting you in the role?
Yes, I think they did, because they all expected, as I had spent the 10 years previously to that doing comedy. I had a radio show, which was the longest running radio show in the history of broadcasting anywhere in the world, including the United States, which we ran nearly 19.5 years. It was called The Navy Lark, which was a sort of satire on the Navy. And this was the most popular radio show for all those years in England. And people found it almost impossible to believe that somebody who could play all these eccentric characters, which I did in the Navy Lark, who could go in and be the good doctor and play him straight. But this is why I did it, because I wanted to do just that.
Did you watch the series at all before you became a part of it?
Yes, I did, because my ex-wife was an actress called Jean Marsh, which you may know in Upstairs, Downstairs. And for a time she was in Doctor Who, and so I watched 2 or 3 of her episodes, but I hadn't seen it really before that at all.
What did you have any impressions of it before you took over?
No, none.
None? So you went in there with a clean...
Yes, I mean, that's where we had the problem, because Sean Sutton, the head of programs, he said, well, we'd like you to do it. And I said, well, how do you want me to play it? He said, it's Jon Pertwee. And I said, who the hell's he? And this is where we came to what you were asking me. I said, I don't know who I am. And he said, well, we do, so just play it as you. I said, well, I never have before, and that's how it all came about. Yes. That's how I began to sort of discover myself.
Mm-hmm. How did your involvement in Doctor Who affect your career? Did it have any effect?
Oh, enormous, yes. Yes, I mean, an enormous effect it had, yeah.
And what way?
Well, my public, in the main, had been, apart from the music halls and having been in the theatre, so the people of older age knew me from straight theatre, from the music halls, of course. and from radio had been orally, not visually. So I needed something that tackled the mass media and tackled the mass public on television, and so Doctor Who is a wonderful shop window for me.
How's it affected your private life? Has it caused any problems, being such a visible
No,
personality?
you get used to that. You learn the ability of shutting off. I'm very good at sort of closing my eyes to it. It irritates the life out of my wife. She gets annoyed because there's no privacy. But I can shut it off. I don't notice it or don't see it. I can do it immediately by making eye contact. As soon as you make eye contact, when you've got somebody talking to you. But if you don't make eye contact, you avoid it.
Yeah, Peter Davidson once said that he felt that once he took over the role of the Doctor, he had a special responsibility. He had to be polite and cheery, and rabble-rousing was right out. Did you feel that way when you took over then?
Peter said that?
Yes.
He's never been a rabble-rouser in his life.
Well, he said it was fortunate that he wasn't.
Yes, I don't think so. No, he's a... No, I never had any worries like that, no. I mean, I've been in business an awful long time when I took over Doctor Who, so I was used to the sort of reactions of the public, and I hope knew how to comport myself in public. I mean, not to get too drunk and not to fall over too often in front of the Queen.